Hey guys, this is Darren White and with Willis Hicks, and both of us are co-CEOs of the newest next best thing out there. It's Agents First, uh, Life, Health, and Retirement, right?
Yep.
So pretty cool,
So,
man.
yeah,
This
super excited.
see right here, brother.
Yeah,
yeah, it's gonna be
nice.
awesome. So, golly, Willis, what in the heck? We were talking this morning. I thought this was kind of cool. So, you and I, this is kind of neat. Willis came down from Indiana, flew down here just to hang out with us in Oklahoma, and I got to show you around a little bit. And what do you think of? We went by a place called the Grisso Mansion.
Yeah.
Tell me
that's
about
crazy.
that. You know,
Yeah.
what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, it was pretty. It was pretty awesome. A big old mansion from
Yeah.
an old oil tycoon.
Yeah.
It was super neat. I really thought it was neat.
Oh my gosh, the place is crazy. We were talking about it, looked at it, and it's very nostalgic there. But I can see maybe someday, having the headquarters
That'd
up
be
there and
super
buying
cool.
the mansion and making that Agents First headquarters. Like
Yeah.
that'd be really a cool deal. But it's neat just getting to talk to you, man, and just chill out a little bit this morning, just over coffee. And one of the things I'm just sitting there talking, as I was listening to your stories, I got to thinking, man, wouldn't that be really like our agents probably just love to sit there and listen to you and I talk,
Yep.
be kind of like a fly on the wall, to hear the stories because stuff that you were sharing and stuff that maybe I could bring to the table. Two top producers and I didn't produce near at the level you did, but produced pretty well, well enough to go on the cruise, which was like top 1% of the company. Got to do that.
Yeah.
So pretty awesome. But some of the numbers that you produced in 2022 was uncharted, and just a few people were able to do that. And so you and I were talking, and we were just like, how do you do that? Because that doesn't happen by chance, right?
Yeah.
It's not a mistake that you hit
Right.
those numbers. We're talking about doing over $1 million a year in production, and you don't get those numbers by just just waking up and they're there.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit. How in the world did you do that?
Yeah. So I used a 3-state strategy on that. I had to get creative because there just wasn't enough, fresh leads or even 1, 2, 3 months in my area to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So I would just collect leads over a 3-week period in different areas and build them up. And so then I would roll into one state for a week at a time, start dialing, setting appointments, and go in there and usually crush it and have a really big week. If I had probably 30 new mortgage leads and then probably like somewhere around 100, 1, 2, 3 months, and you're dialing, you're setting appointments, you can have, $20,000 to $40,000 weeks off
Okay.
of that.
Yeah.
Off of that. And so every week you're rolling into a new state with fresh leads. And so you don't deplete the area. And then, like I said, I'd run a 3-state strategy. So I was always replenishing, and then I would just run like that. So it worked really, really, really well.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, one week you might pick Indiana, maybe,
Yep.
or Michigan.
Yep.
What were some of those? Where did you go to? The urban, rural cities, urban areas, rural, like in the big cities or out in the
Yeah.
country? What were you looking
Yeah,
for?
I went to the big cities. I wanted the population.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to drive, an hour or 2 hours each way. So I would go to Indianapolis, Indiana, or Detroit, Michigan, or like Cincinnati.
Big cities.
Big cities.
And probably because the lead flow was there, right?
There was way more people there, way more leads, and I would just
Yeah.
get a hotel and camp out there for a week and just run business all week, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
So if you want to produce at a high level, going in home, that would be a great strategy. Get as many new leads as you can,
So-
and get your hands on some used mortgage, and you're going to do really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard to argue with those numbers that you put up, right? So we know they're effective, they work, but it wasn't. That would have been impossible to hit those kind of numbers on your own, right? So
Yep.
you had to have a strategy in place, and that's what a lot of people don't talk about. They're like, well, I want to hit those numbers, but do you really? Because there's work goes on to it.
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of
you
work.
got to spend. I used to hear a guy say from other IMO, the leader of it actually. he used to say cheap is ugly, right?
Yeah.
You ever heard that terminology, cheap is ugly?
It's true.
Because you can be cheap about anything you do. Like you can say, well, all I'm going to do is buy the dollar leads and I'm never going to invest in my company. I'm just going to call them all myself and let's see how far that gets you, right? Right. It's not going to get you very far. But you had a strategy, and it took you a while. You didn't just overnight figure this out, right?
You're right.
How long did it take you to kind of figure this thing out?
It probably took me probably about a year and a half to really figure it out.
Think about that, because think about the year and a half you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because there's struggles. You had some. How many times during that year and a half did you want to just throw in the towel? It's every insurance agent's out there has probably quit 1,000 times, before they really figured it out.
Yeah. One of the biggest struggles that I had, and it could go for telesales as well, was presenting to people that I should not have been presenting to. Because then at the end, you get the no, and then you leave, whether you're on the phone or in home, and I was in home, and you start to question your ability.
Yeah.
So I was doing $50,000 a month for 8-9 months in a row, and people would still tell me no, and I would leave the home, and I would question whether I had the skill level or was good enough to be able to do this, which was crazy because I had all the past history that supported it. But I was presenting to people that I shouldn't have been presenting to.
So talk about that. So like, are you talking about when you first go in home and you realize right off the bat
That they're not probably
they're not going to buy?
Yeah.
Why waste your time on spending time and getting beat up while you're in the home?
Yeah.
And then leaving, and then you question everything about it.
Right.
Listen, we've done this. Anyone done this for any amount of time, pretty quick if it's a sell or if it's not going to be a sell.
Yeah. So
and why waste your time there?
I always have a presentation. It's always the same, right? From the open to the close. It's always the same. The only thing that changes is the client.
Yep.
And so, from the very beginning, like I am the doctor.
Yeah.
It's going to be my way. We're going to go through these steps. We're going to go past these check marks, and that way I know it's set up for a really good presentation and a high probability of closing. So, when I was a rookie still, I'd be hitting those check marks, and they would be saying, no, or I just want price or this or that. They were just tire kickers. Yeah. Really, right? 100%. They're just looking for price. They're not even really interested in doing it. And I would keep rolling through, and they would rush me. Mm-hmm. So then my presentation would be all jumbled up. Yep. And then I'd get to the end, and I'd give them a number, and they're like, yeah, let me think about it, or, call me back, or whatever. And I would leave, and I was like, man, can I do this? And I realized it was like, you got to take immediate control, and you got to be in control the whole time. Yes, there's a lot of people that say, hey, I just have conversations. Well, they've had that conversation so many times that it basically is their presentation. It is their script. They've just got it down that they don't use it anymore. Yeah. But you have to have a super strong script, presentation, foundation that you can work off of, so you always get the same outcome. So I was able to get to a point where, when I would go in a home, I probably had close to, well, it's definitely over 80. It was probably somewhere between 80 and 90% close rate, which is really, really good.
That's crazy, right?
It's really good. But that's because, I took immediate control, and I hit my checkpoints throughout my presentation, and, they would be following along and agreeing, and so it just set it up for a great sell, and helping the family. And
I promise you, the appointment was solid. So anytime you get into a home like that, if you get there and they know you're coming, they're ready for you. You get there and you've set the appointment right to where it's not a one-leg appointment, but they've got both people are there, husband and wife. They're prepared. You go to the table. And you sit down, and there's structure even in the in-home when you go in there and you sit down. You got to have it. Like everything is structured into the cell, and you can't just wing this thing. No. And it took you a while to get there, but once you figured it out, it's like duplication.
Oh yeah,
everything. Yeah. Like it's always going to be the same. Yeah. And once you figure it out, you figure it out. But that duplication comes from setting your appointments. You begin to learn what to say and how to set a good appointment. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the problems a lot of agents have is they don't know how to set a good appointment, and then they go out there and get no-showed, you know, or they get one leg, you know, appointment where the one husband there, not the wife or whatever, and especially, and you see it a lot in final expense stuff like that. But it's all really come back to the very first thing is getting the appointment set.
Yep.
This is 3 stages. One is dialing. You know, you got to get on the phone, and that can be in itself can be a nightmare, right? If you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't have the attitude and mindset.
Yeah.
Because you can get beat up on the phones. But then after, you know, once you get the appointment or get them on the phone, you got to set the appointment. And the setting the appointment, you've got to set a solid appointment. Like it's got to be, you know, you can understand that you know, I don't know how you would present your appointments, but like when you're trying to set them up, you would probably let them know that I'm coming in, you know, I'm going to be there at a certain time. If it's important for you to be there, right?
Yep.
Like it had to be a solid appointment.
Yep.
Then when you get there, stage 3 is, you know, this is just the 3rd stage, but this is the most important stage. When you get there, you got to have a good presentation.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's the most important thing. But without number 1 and number 2, you don't get to number 3.
Yep.
You know, if you don't have a good mindset on dialing, you can never get the appointment. If you don't know how to set a solid appointment, then how are you going to get to number 3, which is the most important part, is doing all this and making this close.
Yeah.
I used to hear a guy say, one of the top producers from another company, he said 25% of every house I'd ever go to was going to buy a policy. Mm-hmm. It's like when you walk into the door, they had a checkbook on the kitchen table, ready to write a check out that day to the insurance guy's coming today. Let's buy our policy.
Yeah.
And what's funny is there's times you don't make that sale, and you're like, I screwed myself out of a sale because it wasn't, you know, they were ready to buy, and I talked them out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm saying new agents could do that.
Yeah.
But the reality is you got to the point where you were closing 80, 90% because you knew how to get all the people involved and plugged in. And in mortgage protection, probably a lot of emotion is drawn out, right?
Yep.
So you have a story kind of supported that too, right? Did you share your story?
Yeah. You know, I didn't at first,
Yeah.
but I did start, you know, about halfway through sharing my story because facts tell, stories sell, you know.
Yeah.
And then I would, you know, get them to talk about their beneficiary, obviously, which is the biggest missing piece in the sell, and really honing in on their beneficiary and what it's going to look like when they're gone.
100%.
Not if, but when, right? And creating that urgency to act now and not next month because, like, when life happens, you never know.
You don't know.
You know, this could be it right here today.
Yep.
So,
and everybody has that why, and you know, whether it's their wife. Sometimes they don't have their wife anymore, but they've got kids or grandkids, and even yourself right now. You know, you want to leave a legacy behind, right? You want to take care of, make sure your family's left behind, but you got some grandkids. You know, if something were to happen to you, I'm sure you got some really good insurance out there, and if something were to happen, you're going to make sure that you left a legacy, right?
Yeah.
I think of John over here, my digital marketer and you know, our guru here that we got in-house, and 34, 35, John, 35. John doesn't have a wife and kids yet. They're coming down the road, right? But we don't have it yet. So why would someone like a John, because there's lots of Johns in this world, right? And people like that, why would they need an insurance policy, a life insurance policy, right?
yeah, I mean, you never know. Again, like when life happens, you know, heart attack, stroke, cancer, accidents, like these policies will give you money now to help your, you know, support your lifestyle in the case of something like that.
Yeah, explain how that works. Because there are a lot of people, even new agents, don't even understand that is like one of the biggest drawing points and selling points in a term life insurance policy.
Yeah.
You take out $100,000 policy, a $200,000 policy, a $500,000 policy, and somebody gets cancer or a critical illness, you can pull from that policy.
Yeah.
Live on it.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, 90% of Americans, if not more now, live paycheck to paycheck.
That's
you know,
right.
They're 2 weeks away from being broke.
100%.
So, you know, if you have an unforeseen crisis,
And those happen all the time.
any health, all the time. You never know. You're driving down the road and you get hit,
Yeah.
and you're out of work for a month or two.
Yeah.
You could lose everything. You could literally be homeless and on the streets.
So these policies that we sell,
Yeah.
they have disability riders. They've got critical riders, different conditional terminal riders, different things that goes with them that you can pull from. And a lot of people just don't understand, or they don't sell that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of your biggest selling points there is, make sure you've got an insurance policy that has living benefits.
Yeah. Two biggest
So-
causes of bankruptcy is health issues and death.
Yeah.
That's where families just lose everything.
So another example, if we just took somebody like John, how about leaving a legacy behind, right? Because I know there's things that he would like to maybe support or whatever, and just to know that, like, I would hate to think that I lived a life and nobody after I passed on is like, do you remember John? But how about if I were to what if I was able to leave back something to a charitable group or something that said, the John Dallas Foundation, or whatever it might be. Everybody has something that you can leave something behind to.
Yeah, and you never know, the impact, the legacy you do live behind, however much it is, how that money that you're able to leave for that person or that organization or that charity can impact the world.
Yeah, 100%.
That little bit of money or however much it was could actually end up doing something amazing for someone.
Whether it changed one life or a bunch. What if it changed one person's
what if
life?
it's one person's life?
What if you left a college scholarship? What if you had $100,000 in a policy and said, I'll buy 5 kids scholarships with that $100,000?
Yeah.
Think about what that would do for 5 kids that you changed the world on. Or 2 kids at $50,000, whatever it might be. But give them something give them a chance.
Yeah.
And anyone, don't tell me that, well, you don't have anybody. Well, don't tell. Yeah, that's being selfish. We could change the world with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And but the living benefits is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And to know that you can have insurance for that as well. And there's the other big thing I was thinking about. I've noticed it become a big push is something called an IUL, right? Index Universal Life. And for years, I don't know, I think they were kind of undersold. People didn't understand the concept of an IUL and how to fund it. But if you know how to properly fund an IUL and to make sure that you're funding it right. So here's the problem. We have insurance agents out there. A bunch of them do this.
Yeah.
They don't fund it. They fund it to fit their needs and not the client's needs, right? So they will underfund it, and they'll get the big of the insurance policy as possible, because how do you make your commissions? You make commissions on the insurance side of it. But that's not the proper way to fund an IUL if you want to maintain the IUL throughout the length of your life so it never runs out, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure you're overfunding or maximum funding and putting money into it. So an IUL, though, is an incredible retirement strategy, right? Yeah. There's nothing out there quite like an IUL. And you begin to see, over the last 2 to 3 years, I begin to see more and more people getting into the IULs because of all the strategies, the tax strategies associated with the IUL. So we're not going to get into it a lot now, but we're getting ready to really, Agents First is going to hone in on the IUL market because we are solely believe in it. You take somebody like the John Dallases of the world, the 35 years old, that hadn't even started his family yet, but we know he wants to start thinking about, do I want to work the rest of my life? Mm-hmm. Maybe I can figure out how I can use an IUL, and maybe by the time I'm 55, I can retire, at 55. And that's really what the IUL is. I think they're the perfect age to start thinking anywhere in the 30s to 30 to 50 range, and probably in the 30 to 40, if you can really start funding your IUL at that point, that's what you want to do. So we'll get more into the IULs later, but I think that is a neat strategy we're going to get into. You did mostly what, mortgage protection?
Yeah, mostly mortgage protection. What
do you think about Agents First getting into mortgage protection?
Yeah, I think it's such a huge market, and there's such a huge need for it that, we have to definitely get into that, help these families,
So leads, because remember you couldn't have done that without leads, right?
Right.
And you figured out a lead strategy. And your lead strategy, you kind of went over that with us, but in order to get the leads, you had to have a way to get them, right? And so you worked and resourced ways and found ways that you can find those lead sources.
Yep.
How about with agents first? What are we going to do how are we going to make that the next step for our agents to be able to sell mortgage protection?
Yeah. So we've got a couple partnerships with a couple companies that we can get, leads, new leads, 1, 2, 3 month leads, and then we also have our own in-house that we generate our own leads for social media leads, which are just complete fire. They're amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to have plenty of leads for agents. That's definitely not a problem.
Yeah. So whether you like to do in-home and do it the way you did it, or you want to do, you want to go out there and work social media leads. Now, typically, social media leads more than likely are going to be not so much in-home because they could be all over the place, right? So you can market it down 2 or 3 states, but you might have one in Dallas, and then you might have one in Oklahoma City or Tulsa or maybe Kansas City, depending on a 3-state area you want to work.
Yeah.
But it's not like you can just go. So more than likely, set those up by telesales. But everyone's doing telesales these days.
Definitely a lot less competition because when you do, a mailer, whether it's final expense or mortgage protection, there's 30 different agents calling on that mailer.
Yeah.
You do social media leads, you may have 2 or 3 agents.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So the competition is way less. And as long as you put the client in the best policy for them, you're not going to have to worry about anybody replacing it or chargebacks. So
Yeah.
And we've got the best carriers in the country that no one can touch. So
No, 100%. Agents First is all built. We built around getting out the top quality carriers
Giving the client the best.
for specific. So we talked about that. Companies like Quility, Insurance Carrier of the Year in 2022, offer some of the best rates I've ever seen on simplified issue.
Yeah.
But here's the deal: you can get them qualified, and most times, in many cases, within the first 15 minutes of me sitting there, starting the application, typing it up, find out if they're going to be a preferred or a standard, and they're going to know right there while I'm in the home with them, in many cases, if they're going to get accepted.
Yep.
And
It's huge.
so great companies,
Super
great
simple.
carriers to work with, get them qualified right off the bat. So, telesales, you don't have to drive all over the country. And I know when I was working, I had the whole state of Oklahoma locked out.
Yeah.
Mortgage, I did the same thing you were doing, mortgage protection. And literally I was driving from one end of the state to the other. And I wasn't doing the big city, so I might, I just had the whole state, so I might be in Woodward, Oklahoma, which is way out in the Panhandle. And then I might have to drive all the way to eastern Oklahoma, which is good, 6 hours away. And so a lot of my day was driving back and forth to places, and don't have to do that on telesales.
No.
You simply call, set the appointment. Once again, you're still calling. You were doing the same thing before.
Yeah.
You were calling. You were setting an appointment. The only thing is number 3 is now, instead of going in home, we're gonna do a telesale. Well, nothing changes. You're still making sure that you get the husband and wife there, that it's a solid appointment, but we're just gonna do it on phone. And
Yeah, telesales is just so much more efficient. I mean, the number one resource, the most important resource we have is time.
Yeah.
You drive an hour and you get no-showed.
Oh, God.
You have an hour drive probably to your next appointment.
Yeah.
You can do 2, 3 telesales appointments in that time, and if you get no-showed, like you're just sitting right there, you just keep dialing.
Yeah.
So it's just way more efficient, way more cost-effective, and I believe you can run way more premium doing telesales than you can at home.
I've seen the numbers.
100%.
Yeah, I think you can because you just get more opportunities.
Yeah.
Here's what I used to tell people: a no-show is, to me, would just a standing invitation for you to go back and see them any point, right?
Yeah.
So that if you're going to a house and you got a no-show, just like they owe me one.
Yeah.
So I can go there anytime I want, midnight if I want to. But if I want to go, they owe me one. Well, then now if you get no-showed on a telephone call and they decide not to show up on your appointment, well, I'm going to call them around the clock now, anytime I want, until they block my number. Then I'll call for another number. But they owe me one because we already had that appointment booked. But it's easier to do that from a phone than to drive an hour to try to get it.
And the fact is, people are busy. We're busy.
100%.
with our careers, with our families. So, for them to no-show us or miss an appointment, like,
Not personal.
and a lot of agents, and I used to do it myself, I would take it personal. I was like, oh, they don't want it. They're
Yeah.
trying to blow me off. It's like, no, they're just busy. Something came up.
Yep, 100%.
but-
They didn't remember it. It's
Yeah.
It happened. I do it. And you're going to have those that will schedule an appointment just to get you off their back, but then they never had an intention to be there. But that's life. This is I used to laugh at people. They're like, well, those leads weren't any good, and leads are not sales. They're called leads. They're not called sales, right? So it's not a guarantee that you're going to make a sell on every lead. Your job is to buy a lead and to go out there and work the lead. But leads cost money. Remember, going back to my cheap is ugly, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to invest in your company. Now, you invested, but not only did you spend quite a bit of money in leads, but did you have dialers? And
I did.
You had people working for you.
I did, because, again, like, I can only make so many dials in a day.
Yeah.
So, and a dialer will never be as good as you on the phone, usually.
That's right.
Because it is your business. It's just a job for them. But they are very effective, and they can be dialing all day, every day.
Yeah.
To where, when you're running life insurance appointments like we were, like, you have 2 dial days, and you're working the rest of the time. So, yeah, I had a couple dialers that I trained really, really well, and they were super effective, and they were really good.
It took them a while. You had to train them.
Yeah.
And they weren't very good at the beginning. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
And you're telling me, like, well, that dude wasn't very good. Well, now he becomes your assistant. He doesn't dial anymore, but he was good at something else. But
Yeah, and they're worth it. I mean, again, you train them really well. They're worth their weight in gold.
100%. So, a new agent out there, don't go out there and say, well, Willis or Darren said, I need to go hire me a dialer right off. No, don't. My suggestion is you learn how to dial, but once you get really good at in home, and you're starting to make the money, the problem with a lot of agents are they go out there and make their first big paycheck. What do? We call it the Disneyland effect, right? They're like, hey, let's go celebrate. And they go spend their $1,200, $1,500, and now they don't have any money to buy leads.
Yep.
Invest back into your company.
Yep.
You invested back in your company. In order to make $1 million in a year, you spent a lot of that money. You had to have money for leads. You had money to help you produce those, get your appointments set. And so you don't just get that. So I've heard people say, well, I want to be a top producer. Well, do you want to be a top producer? Because your actions doesn't show that you'd want to be.
Yeah.
Your actions shows me that, you get up late, you dial for a few hours, and then you get, you go eat lunch, you go do something else, and then maybe you'll dial a little bit longer, and then, then you go out and, you wind up spending, if you really documented your time, like you're not putting 8, 10, 12 hours a day in, you're maybe putting 3 hours a day in, and you're saying I'm full time. And then you go back and you say, well, why am I not a top producer? Yeah. Well, did you put in the hours the top producer did? Yeah. Like, I guarantee you were putting in more than 40 hours a week when you were producing those numbers, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
80 hours a week, 120. Like you put in the numbers, you put in the work, but you also paid a staff to support you to do that. So, do you really want to be a top producer? And if you want to be a top producer, you've got to act like a top producer. You can't be afraid to spend money. Scared money doesn't make any money. And so you got to go out there and invest in your business, invest in it. And so, that was pretty cool. All that stuff you talked about, and you didn't learn that just on your own. And you did actually probably learn it on your own. You probably did you go through any trainings or anything? Like, how did you figure out how to sell at that level? Yeah, so just a lot of trial and error, and listen to a lot of videos, on YouTube, and going to different events and listening to top producers, and just taking, a little bit from this person, a little bit from that person, and putting it here. And it took me a while to set up a super solid presentation. I mean, it was a year and a half of refining that thing over and over and over again. And, you touched on a point that's really huge, is like, when you work for yourself, like, having the discipline and self-control to sit there and actually dial and do the work that needs to be done. When we work for somebody else, it's easy. You go punch a clock and you're there for 8, 10 hours a day, and you just, whatever you get done, you get done. Well, when you work for yourself, like, you gotta stay busy. If not, like, the results will show. Yeah. So a huge trick on that is to
that I would do would be to get a timer, set a timer, and just have it right there. Click that timer, 20 minutes, and just dial straight for like 20 minutes.
Write that down. That's gold. And I watched Willis do this, and Landon actually came up to my son-in-law, and Landon says, did you look at that? Like, he's got a timer. Every 20 minutes it goes off, and it allows you to super focus.
Hyper focus
For 20 minutes on one thing.
And then when you're done, you can, if you want to get up, get a drink, or if you have to do any other little meaningless task, you can do it for a couple minutes, take like a 5-minute break, and then boom, set that timer again, and nothing gets in your way.
Wow.
And then you can get a lot of work done.
Dang, that's gold right there, man. That's gold.
It's huge.
So, gosh, what else, man? What else we want to talk about today? So health side, we got some really good leads that we're about to roll out to you guys this is crazy, but we just started mortgage protection. In less than 24 hours, we got 10 leads coming in right off the bat. And in the world of starting a new lead strategy, like, that is going to be big, and we're expecting to see those numbers grow to support, to where we're getting 100, 150 leads in a day, 200 leads a day, and then just duplication, right? At some point it becomes duplication. But when we look at the percentage of hits being on it, we're looking at a pretty high level compared to other ones. So we think we got a really good mortgage protection lead starting that we're going to be rolling out to you guys. And on Tuesday night, we're going to be sharing that. And hopefully a bunch of our agents will say, yeah, we want to jump in. When we started Agents First, it was really geared around, on the life side of it, something that I was real successful with. It was working with veterans. And we're not going to get away from that. We still want to embrace that, enhance that program, those leads, and to still work it. But a lot of the other final expense leads.
Yeah.
You and I both came from the mortgage protection side. Like, we were top producers in the level of mortgage protection. So why would we stop doing what we were good at? Why wouldn't we also embrace that? And I think that's what we did. So we brought in a marketer that knew how to do that. And he created, in my opinion, the best mortgage protection lead out there. I've never seen one quite like it.
They're only going to get better from this point on.
It's going to get better.
Oh, yeah.
So the lead is gold. And so we've got some really good leads. So why not jump on those and see if we can't get those out to our agents and let them start making that big money with good quality leads.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're all different. There's a lot of agents that just like final expense. That's all they want to run. So it's like, hey, we got plenty of those as well.
Yep.
So we're going to have plenty of leads for a ton of agents to come in here, because again, no one pays the comp that we pay.
Yep.
No one has quite the carriers that we have.
Right.
And our leads are phenomenal. So, it's all about putting agents in the best place to win.
100%.
So, we got to have the leads for all these agents that's coming in. So,
yeah, and that was a big deal for us because the social media leads can take some time at the beginning, right? So we were thinking, what are we going to do to get our agents leads? So this past week, we kind of partnered or brokered with 2 different lead companies. I've got one down in Florida, Mid-Atlantic, that I talked to early in the week. And then yesterday we visited with another one, Leadco, here up in Oklahoma. Been around forever and ever. And we're going to be probably one of the oldest lead companies out there in direct mailers.
Yeah.
So we have 2 really good direct mail sources. And I'm going to be working with another one this week as well. So we're going to have plenty of direct mail. Whether you do, like you said, 1, 2, 3 months, fresh leads, open your own campaign, whatever works for you, we've got options. So we're gonna have you options now for leads. You don't have to just do telesales. We're gonna have leads where you can go work in your own neighborhood, lock in campaigns. So those are available to Agents First now that maybe a month ago weren't.
Yep.
What's crazy is we started this company January 1st. February the 10th today, if we're looking at today, around February 10th. Well, we're just a little over a month old. And when we started, we weren't really ready in the lead process. But a month into it, I think we're there.
Oh, yeah.
We got the lead flow. We know we got carriers now that we can support the leads. speed of contracting. I think that was something at the beginning. It was a little bit slow, but we've learned and we learned how to increase and get that better. We've done a lot of new things recently that is going to make the speed of contracting easier, more efficient. One of them, we got 2 carriers that we can literally send out contracts the day they sign up with us, and we can get them contracts in 2 days. Prosperity and Sentinel, both good. Prosperity offers life and term life and final expense, whole life, and then Sentinel with a really solid whole life product, been around for a long time, and they got really good. One of the things about Sentinel is they got a 10 pay, 20 pay, 30 pay, or whatever. So you can pay or pay it all at one time. So you can pay up in 10 years if you wish to. Yeah. Sometimes people want that.
Yeah.
Over the years, we never had that with the other IMO. You never had a company that you could do that. And I would hear people say, well, what if I only want to pay for 10 years? Well, we don't offer that. Well, now we do. Yeah. We got a company that'll do a 10 pay. So those are good options to have if you need to, if you want to. So we got the carriers.
Yeah.
We wrote this last week, I think about 7 policies that normally, check this out, normally would have been what we call a guaranteed issue, right? What the guaranteed issue means, I'm not going to ask you any health questions. Well, why would somebody not ask anybody health questions?
Yeah, they know they're unhealthy.
Because they know they're unhealthy, right? They know they've got certain issues that maybe they're congestive heart failure, they've got cirrhosis of the liver, they've got some pretty severe issues going
Oxygen.
on.
Yes,
They're on oxygen. They got they're just some serious stuff. They recently had a heart attack. And so I'm not going to ask you health questions, but what does that mean? That means I'm going to get you insurance, but after 2 years, it'll be fully, in place. But It's going to take 2 years to be fully in place. We wrote about 7 policies just this week alone on people that would have been in a 2-year wait plan. Yeah. But we got them immediate coverage through this company.
Those policies will.
Oh, you think those guys are going anywhere?
Back.
Never,
no.
Because they've got something immediate.
No one else can get it.
Almost everybody I talked to said, we don't even know why you're talking to us because we can't get insurance, one. Or they would say, I really don't want it. I've got a 2-year plan already. I don't want that. I've got something already. I'm like, do you have something immediate? Like if you died next week? Mm-hmm. No, it's I've still got a month and a half left on the other one.
Yeah.
I mean a year and a half, not a month and a half. I had this for 6 months. I'm like, really? Okay. Well, you got 18 months left, or you can have coverage tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you want? Well, tell me about that. And you know what? The rates were better than the 2-year plan that I was offering that they already had. So it's kind of crazy, but just to have those carriers is
amazing.
It's amazing. So we got all that and a bunch more. So
definitely protect a lot more families.
Lead flow. We got lead flow now. Carriers, no questions. We got that. Speed of contracting. We got 2 carriers to get contracted in 2 days. Mm-hmm. So we're learning through this first, I would say 40 days in the business. Through the first 40 days in the business, we learned a lot. We've come a long ways. But we're getting there, and we're getting closer and closer to offering anything anybody would want.
Yeah.
One other big reason why they'd want to work for Agents First as opposed to somebody else is roll up, right?
Roll up debt.
Have we figured something out about that? What did we get? This was kind of, you come to me and mentioned what you want to do, and I said genius, right?
Yeah. Well, we're not gonna have that problem anymore.
Yeah. Well, we figured it out.
Yeah.
So we are having our agents actually come in, and we're going to support them through Agents First, and we're going to have them sign a contract, and they're going to be responsible for their debt. Yep. And if you're not willing to, then there's other companies out there that'll sign you on.
Plenty of other IMOs out there.
There's a bunch of them.
That's
you go
right.
work for them.
That's right.
But wait till you get hit with that roll-up debt, then you'll be wishing that you had that support.
Yep.
And we figured out a way to get it's called a roll-up debt program that we've got put in place.
Yep.
And we've got attorneys on what do we call it, on standby or whatever, where they're ready to go to work for us. So we're going to take care of that. We're going to support our agents.
Yep.
I think that's the most important thing. I think that's what agents are looking for is, do I have support from the agency? Are they from the IMO?
Yeah.
Are they going to support us? What does that support look like? Well, it starts off with when you come on board with us, you're going to be in agreement, and your agents, when you hire them on, will be.
Yeah. I mean, this definitely isn't for everybody.
Right.
This is for people that work really hard and want to run a good business, and want to come here and build teams and not have to worry about hundreds of thousands of dollars of roll-up debt and putting them out of business and having to be on the hook for that financially.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to have to worry about that here. We have very strict parameters around that we're just not going to allow that.
No, 100%. You have to do that. So.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, hey, it's been a great visit, man.
Yeah,
this is
for
awesome.
sure.
So I appreciate you coming down from Indiana to Oklahoma and being a part of this conversation. And we're going to do this a lot more. Maybe once a month we'll try to get together and just shoot the breeze. And maybe you guys that are listening in today, you might want to jump on there and ask questions. And maybe we'll take some of those questions that you guys are asking about, and we'll address them on the next time we have a visit. And anyway, God bless you guys, and come if you're interested in Agents First. We'd love to have you come and listen in and call us. Willis, what's your phone number? What's a good number for them to reach out to you?
260-570-3991.
All right, John, you think maybe you can put that on the video for us? And Darren White, 405-227-3751. Or you can reach me at Darren at agentsfirstinsurance.com or Willis at agentsfirstinsurance.com.
Yep.
And you guys reach out to us, holler if you maybe there's something we said you wanted to learn a little bit more about.
Yep.
Talk to us. We'd love to have you come on board with us. All right.
Yep.
Thank you guys.